Good morning, everybody, and thank you for joining us today. I'm Kathy from the central office, and I'll be your host for today's webinar on understanding New York State paid family leave. Your microphones and telephones are currently muted to eliminate background noise during the program. We will take questions at the end of the presentation. To ask a question, either type it into the question box on your control panel, or if you have a working microphone, raise your hand by clicking on the hand icon on the control panel, and I will unmute you. Today's program is being recorded and will be available through WebMQS in the Shared Resources section. And I'd like to thank our Niagara SBDC for arranging this presentation. So let's go ahead and get started. I'm very pleased to introduce Tracy Schmidt, Account Executive from Complete Payroll. Welcome, Tracy.
Thank you, Kathy. So just a little bit about Complete Payroll. We are headquartered in Perry, New York. We've been around for 25 years, so 25th year in business, and we've been doing a lot to educate our current clients and prospective clients about how to properly prepare for the New York State paid family leave. In the room with me is our marketing manager, CJ Maurer. He put a lot of what you're about to see together, as well as Jen Sweatland, who is our regional sales manager out here in Buffalo.
Hello, everyone.
Hello. So we're going to try to make this, I know we're going to be talking about policy and laws, but we're going to try to make this as painless as possible for you guys, and just give you some really great information for not only yourselves, but the constituents who will probably have a lot of questions for you guys as advisors. So we can get started. So what we're going to go through today is kind of talk about the law, implementation, eligibility, some obligations on the employer side, and then really get down into execution and what it will look like to business owners when this law is actually enacted. Obviously, of only what we know so far, still being, several months out. So a little bit about the law. Obviously, it's called the Paid Family Leave Law, so this law is designed to give employees some of their wages while they are out for qualifying events. It also guarantees that employees are able to return their job and maintain their health benefits as long as they continue to contribute during that leave. It was signed in 2016, but the phases of implementation begin in 2018. And I think it's important to know that the paid family leave policy and program is enforced and maintained through the New York State Workers' Compensation Board. It's through them that we got a lot of this information, and we'll give you the helpline at the end of the presentation so you can contact them directly. They've been really great to work with and have given us a ton of information throughout our process as well.
Oh, one quick thing to mention, everybody. This is CJ. What we're actually going through is a PDF, which we will make available to you after this, so you will have it for reference.
Yes.
So don't feel like you have to feverishly take notes. All of this content will be made available to you.
Thank you. So we can talk a little bit about the phasing of implementation. So you can see over the next 5 years, more time will be available to the employees as each year goes on. So starting in 2018, employees will have 8 weeks of paid family leave, and then from 2021, from there on out, they'll have up to 12 weeks. And what will those benefits look like? So in 2018, they'll get up to 50% of the wage, and that is actually up to the 50% of the statewide weekly average wage. And eventually it'll be up to 67%. And that statewide average weekly wage will be determined each year, so that cap will actually potentially change each year. And I believe they'll release the wage and reevaluate that wage each September, if I read that correctly. But the important thing to know is that this is New York State, so a lot of things are still being figured out. This is the information we have at this time, but like we said, you can call that helpline as things roll out and new information is given to us We'll be sure to update everything on our side as well. I'm sure the carriers are staying on top of it. And you can also call the Workers' Compensation Board as well. So this is just a little bit about the timeline overview. This is just a nice view over each year, the weeks available, and then the percentage of the salary that each employee can receive as well. Like CJ said, these slides are going to be available to you, so I'm not going to sit here and read verbatim each slide because I think that would be a little boring. Not a good use of our time. So if I'm going a little quickly, you know, during the question and answer, we can recover some things, but I just want to, you know, give you the brief overview of each slide. So who is eligible for paid family leave benefits? Basically, every full or part-time private employee in New York State. So with the FMLA, that was really for 50-plus employee organizations. If you have one employee, they are eligible for paid family leave. And this is that each employee becomes eligible to receive the benefits. For full-time employees, it's after 26 weeks of employment, and part-time, it's 175 days. Employees do not have to take their sick leave, vacation, PTO before using paid family leave. Employers can permit it, but they cannot require it. And if you see this red box at the bottom, cosmetic treatments, certain minor illnesses or procedures are not qualified events for paid family leave. So that's something to keep in mind as well. Oh, another thing to point out is public employees, their employer may opt into the program, but they are not required to have and offer a paid family leave program. Some unions can bargain that into policy if they choose, if it's a public employer. So maternity and paternity leave. So that's a good point. So it's maternity and paternity leave. So this is really for the bonding of a child, whether it be after giving birth, adoption, or fostering of a child. So for 2018, that will start with 8 weeks. Caring for a close relative with a serious health condition. What's really interesting is their definition of a close relative is actually pretty broad, even covering in-laws, someone who's even acted as a parent for you can be considered a close relative, so that's really something to consider.
This is CJ jumping in. Something I would like to mention. So when we shared this guide with a lot of our clients and actually have made it available to the public, and one of the questions that we got from one of our clients was that she actually cares for her brother with dementia, and she wanted to know that she would be eligible to take paid family leave under the second of the three major categories for reasons that one would qualify. And what's interesting is that sibling is not included in the close relative in this situation. But what Tracy was talking about is somebody who may not be a parent but is acting as a parent. That's actually the key. You may be familiar with the term in loco parentis, which is Latin for in place of a parent or something similar. It's basically a designation that somebody could apply for, which would essentially suggest that the person they're caring for is unable to care for themselves, and the person is actually their primary caretaker. So in this particular instance, and if you meet anybody like that, if they want to inquire about a sibling or something like that, they would actually have to apply for an in loco parentis designation, and then if that was awarded, then they would become eligible. So I just thought that was kind of an interesting thing to share.
And then you can see what qualifies for a serious health illness there in the second paragraph. And then we give an example as well. So an employee who needs to care for their mom. So what's interesting is paid family leave is not for the employee themselves with a serious health condition. It's for caring for a close relative who has one. So you cannot take paid family leave if you yourself have a serious health condition. It's for caring for someone else. So I think that's an important designation to understand. The third major category for paid family leave is active duty military deployment. So this is to help care for someone who is on active duty or has been notified of an impending call or order of active duty. And again, this cannot be for the person themselves. If the employee is called to active duty, they cannot take paid family leave. But it can be for an employee, if an employee's spouse, domestic partner, child, or parent is called, then the employee can take it. So how exactly does the money flow? So in talks with the Workers' Compensation Board, they are really mirroring this similar to disability, how disability is currently done. So they did release the rate. It is 0.126% of their salary per pay period up to the state wage gap, which currently for 2018 is $1,305.92. So what will happen is similar to how disability is now, employers will collect the proper amount from their employees each pay period, whether it be, it's likely going to be a payroll deduction. So if someone does their payroll in-house, if you have an outsourced payroll service, they will collect it that way. And then the employer will actually pay for the premium themselves, similar to how disability is. Now the interesting thing is employers can take deductions as early as July 1. Now, why would an employer want to begin taking deductions early? I actually believe that's on the slide later, so we'll touch on that. But so moving forward, an employer will have to actually purchase a policy and essentially get reimbursed through payroll deductions, similar to how disability is. So that's kind of the mindset between how the money flows. So what are some employer obligations? Just like it's mandatory for all employees to contribute through a payroll deduction, all employers must offer paid family leave to qualifying employees. It's not optional for private employers. They have to do it. They must provide paid family leave coverage within 4 weeks of having at least one employee. They must include documented information about the paid family leave policy and its employee handbook. And if an employer doesn't have a handbook, they have to give written documentation about it and how to apply for it. So written notice about the law is essential, and it has to be integrated into the handbook if the employee, the employer has one. And if an employer somehow collects a surplus of payment, they must reimburse that employee. So what are the penalties? They're pretty steep. If you do not offer paid family leave or allow your employees to take it, or fail to meet any of its obligations, it will be the employer will be subject to 0.5% of its total payroll, or $500 per pay period. So it's really important to let employers know of the January 1 start date. Make sure you have a policy in place by then, or else the fines can get pretty hefty. In our experience through the Workers' Comp Board not having workers' comp or disability, they are really quick at noticing if someone does not have a policy. So not a fine that you want to pay if you do not have to. So how does a business prepare for this? Step one is to figure out payroll. As we discussed, these the premiums will be funded through payroll deductions from your employees. So you'll really want to start talking with whoever handles your payroll, whether it's your processor or someone within your company, how you're going to really start withdrawing that from each employee's paycheck. Number two is to get your coverage. This is a policy that each employer does have to purchase. So it's really essential that you call and talk to your current disability carrier and make sure that they're providing a paid family leave policy. Just like disability, it's mandatory for employees to pay through payroll deductions. So when we were talking with the Workers' Comp Board, really communicating with your carrier or broker is essential in this process to make sure that you have all your ducks in a row, or your constituents have all their ducks in a row, to make sure that they have the coverage and are purchasing the policy and collecting the premiums as needed. Now, the interesting thing is some insurance carriers may opt out of offering paid family leave, which could affect an employer's disability insurance, because if a carrier refuses to or chooses not to offer paid family leave, they must pull out of the New York State insurance market. And if they do that, that means that that employer's disability coverage is now gone. So it's, one, important to communicate with your carrier to make sure that they are offering a paid family leave policy. And then two, making sure that they have that policy in effect for January 1. I'm not sure how often you guys work with self-insured companies, but employers may purchase a standalone paid family leave policy if they can find one, which may be helpful for self-insured companies. And companies cannot self-insure for paid family leave alone. They have to self-insure for other insurances if they want to self-insure for paid family leave as well. So I think this is a big one that I think some people may not even be thinking about, is planning for staffing gaps. Imagine if you have one employee who then has a qualifying event and wants to take paid family leave for 8 weeks in 2018 or 12 weeks in 2021. That is a huge impact on someone's business. And I don't think that employees who are paying into this are not going to want to take it. I mean, if maybe that's just me, but if I'm paying into into an insurance and I qualify for a leave, I'm paying for it. I might as well take it. So I don't think we should underestimate employees and their want to capitalize on the benefits available to them. So this may be a big conversation that you want to have with your employers. How do you plan on covering the staffing gaps if someone does take paid family leave?
Yeah, and just to add to that, what I will say is Tracy's right that I think this is far off the radar for a lot of businesses. But those businesses that we've worked with who have really sunk their teeth into understanding this and trying to prepare for this, I would say the general consensus among all of them, but especially small businesses, is staffing gaps. Those who really understand this and are prepared for it can clearly see that the staffing gaps is probably going to be the hardest part for them, because so they have to do a little bit of administrative work to set up the policy, and they got to set up payroll, but the policy is essentially being funded through their employees' deductions, so it's not significant impact on their bottom line. They have to provide legal notice. That's fine, they can handle that, but this is really a big deal. And because unlike FMLA, which employers need to have at least 50 employees to offer FMLA. I mean, this, as Tracy said earlier, this impacts everybody. So if you're working with a startup landscaping company and they have 3 employees, and that's a business already where it's very hard to hire and retain staff, and all of a sudden one of the guys has a baby, and now he has an opportunity to be out for 8 weeks and still earn 50% of his pay. I mean, that's significant. So I think that this is just going to happen a lot, and I think the small businesses are going to feel it a lot more. And so one of the things that we're working on is partnering with some of our partners in the HR and staffing realms to see what they're doing and see if we can help curate more resources and provide them to our audiences to just kind of prepare. I mean, it's not something that we as a payroll company can do ourselves to help mitigate staffing gaps, but it definitely should be on everyone's radar.
Thank you. And then finally, documentation. As we discussed before, employers must explain this program and how to apply for it to all of their employees. Again, if they have a handbook, it must go in the handbook. If not, it needs to be written notice. Also, your labor law posters that seem to be needing to be updated once a month will be updated again at least yearly. I mean, between minimum wage and this changing as it's being phased in, you're going to have to update that labor law poster at least every year. And then again, a really important thing, which we'll dive into a little bit later, is really if you're offering certain leave programs to your employees already, really going into that handbook or going into your policies and benefits and making sure you're integrating paid family leave into your standing policies already is going to be really important as well.
And sorry to jump in one more time. I am in the process of actually working with one of our attorney partners that we use for labor law legal matters. And what we're trying to do is we're working with them and the state workers' compensation board collectively to develop an official letter template that the state will accept as proper documentation to that business owners can give to their employees. So if any of you are interested in that, please let us know. And when it's ready, we will give it to you so that you can pass it along to all the businesses that you advise, or you can have them contact us directly, and we can either give it to them or put them on the waiting list and get it to them when it's ready.
Okay, so we talked about early payroll deductions. So employers can actually start collecting their premiums now that the rate is out from their employees as early as July 1. And some people are wondering, why would that be advantageous at all? Why even bother? Well, when you purchase a premium, the employer is basically purchasing that premium up front, paying for it themselves, and then getting reimbursed throughout the year from their employees. By starting to collect your premiums July 1st, allows you to have a pool of money to put into the purchasing of the premium ahead of time. So it's a little less of an impact on that employer when it comes time to purchase that policy. A trust account is not required for those collections and for the premiums. So this might just help a little bit with cash flow. A lot of our clients have seen the value in this, and we're working with them to set this up for July 1 because especially for small businesses, you know, if you don't have a ton of money to float around, this could really, really be helpful. So large businesses too, but I don't think the advantage of starting on July 1 can be understated. Why not do it if you can? And if you collect premium from an employee who is no longer employed with you in the beginning of 2018, you do not have to reimburse them. So what you collect throughout this time is yours to put forward to the purchase of that policy. So that makes things a little bit more stable for the employer as well. So as we worked with the Workers' Compensation Board, we talked, you know, what will it really look like to file a claim? And again, they said that it will be similar to how you make a disability claim now. But what they essentially told us is there's going to be a packet of paperwork that has not been finalized yet. But the employee will complete and fill out Part A, give it to the employer. The employer will complete Part A and B, give it back to the employee, and then the employee sends it directly to the carrier. Again, this is the process at this time. This is what we know. I would hazard to guess this could change when it comes January 1. It wouldn't surprise me, but we don't want to say this is law. This is just what, you know, they're thinking right now. Not everything is set in stone yet, so this is what the process roughly looks like at this time. They're also likely they said it was likely that there would be a standard form. Each carrier won't have its own, but again, that's just what they're suspecting at this time. We'll know more as it gets closer to January. So a little bit more about deductions. You do not have to wait until the employee becomes eligible for benefits. So that 26 weeks for full-time, 175 days for part-time, they begin at the hire date. The employer can pay to pay for the premiums or the deductions if they choose, similar to disability now. If that's something the employer wants to offer their employees, they can. When we asked the New York State Workers' Compensation Board if these deductions are pre or post-tax. They said they are not a taxing authority, so you should contact the Department of Taxation or the IRS for guidance on that. So that's really what we are communicating to our clients and people who are asking us whether these deductions are pre or post-tax as well. So here's an example of our benefits. We just wanted to kind of give you two different scenarios to see what this would actually look like in terms of benefits. So the first example is Rose. Now she makes more than the SAWW, which is state average weekly wage. So she makes $1,500 a week. Her employer should deduct 0.126% of the first $1,305.92 because that is the state average weekly wage. So even though she makes more than that, that is where her premium caps out and also her benefit caps out. Now you can see Jack is the second employee. He makes less than the state average weekly wage. So he doesn't have, so he pays less because he makes less, but he also receives less for that same reason. So right now it's 50%, but that will be up to 67% as by 2021. And again, the state average weekly wage, that's based on the 2018 calculation, so that will likely change each year as well. So again, you'll have these slides, so you'll be able to read these both and analyze them a little bit more on your own. And again, if you have any questions, you can contact myself, anyone in this room, or the Workers' Compensation Board. So we wanted to really just kind of give you some miscellaneous information about this law, things that we've come across, employers giving us specific scenarios that we were able to find the answer to. So an employee has to give notice about a qualifying event to their employer as soon as possible, unless it's a foreseeable event. So therefore, for example, if you know that you are going to have a newborn child, you must give 30 days notice of when you want to take that leave. There is no minimum amount of a time that employee must take. They can take 1 day if they want and have it count as paid family leave, but paid family leave must be taken in full day increments. So for example, if you are caring for a spouse and they have, maybe chemotherapy that they need a couple days a week, once a week, you don't have to take 8 weeks in a row. You can take every Monday off for paid family leave, and as long as it doesn't max out the benefit in a 52-week period. So I think that's something that's really important, again, with staffing gaps, because you could potentially have an employee who takes 2 days off a week every week and they account for paid family leave. That could be huge for an employer. It cannot be used for bereavement, unfortunately, so employees cannot take that for mourning. It's based on a rolling 52-week period, we were told, not a January to December period. So that is something to consider. And I kind of touched on this before, but if an employee has multiple qualifying events during the rolling, well, that should say 52-week period instead, an employee can take paid family leave for each event as long as it doesn't exceed the maximum. So if an employee, needs to bond with a child, they can take part of their time for that event. And then if they have a spouse who's called to military duty, they can take the remaining if they'd like for that event, or however much they'd like. They just cannot exceed the maximum. Another thing that we talked about, which I touched on a little bit, is if an employer has some sort of parental leave policy or military duty policy in place already, those policies really should be revised to run concurrently with paid family leave if that's the employer's intention. You really want to relook at the policies that they may or may not have in place and make sure that paid family leave is integrated in with the current policies. Because if you have a parental leave policy in place and don't say right out that an employee cannot stack these policies, it leaves potential for an employee to be able to do that and take multiple weeks off of work if it's not worded correctly. So that's something to think about. We mentioned there's no trust account required for deductions. And if an employee is not employed long enough to become eligible for paid family leave, the deductions do not get reimbursed back to that employee. So it doesn't matter how long they're employed. You collect those the employer collects those premiums and does not pay an employee back if they aren't there long enough to take the benefit. When it comes to time off, we touched on this a little bit before, but the employer can allow the employee to take PTO either before PTO, vacation, sick time, before, during paid family leave, but they can't require them to do so. So you can't tell your employee, you have to use all your PTO before you take paid family leave. That is not compliant with the law. So one thing before we take questions is we wanted to show you our knowledge portal that we created for you guys, so you can see some of our resources, some more knowledge. We'll import this specific presentation to the knowledge portal, but CJ can take it from here because he really created this for you guys.
Thank you, Tracy. So yeah, we started creating knowledge portals for a lot of our partners in a variety of industries, and the reason why we started creating them is because we're constantly publishing new resources. Like this is actually our PDF guide on preparing for paid family leave, which we just went over with you right now. But at least once a month, we're constantly creating and releasing a new resource. You can see we have a New York State employee onboarding kit, a New York State employee termination kit, and this resource library is constantly growing. So we're constantly publishing new resources. We're constantly publishing new blog posts, and you can subscribe to our newsletter. The point is that there's a lot of different touch points to really get and benefit from all the stuff that we put out there that can help businesses. So we wanted to find a way to consolidate that on one page, but then also to customize that for particular audiences that might be interested in certain information. For example, if we do this for a CPA partner firm, we would custom curate a bunch of articles that kind of speak to their priorities as tax advisors, right? So what we did here is we took a stab and in creating something specifically for all of the small business development centers throughout the state of New York. You can see you can actually access this web page. It's completepayroll.com/NYS SBDC. And then this is your knowledge portal. We created this for advisors and also for the businesses that you actually advise. Anybody who is not an expert in payroll, HR, labor law, or things that are related to that, but have a capacity and or need to figure some of this stuff out, this is where they can go. So I'll just briefly take you through it. What you can see across this horizontal bar here is it's got a resource library, helpful articles, services overview in case somebody wants to inquire about our services, direct support. You see there's a way to contact Tracy directly, an opportunity to subscribe to our email newsletter, and if you and or your advisees appreciate this level of support and don't feel like they're getting that with their current payroll provider, which I can almost guarantee you they're not, the way to start the process of figuring out how great life is in payroll country is to request a quote. But first, again, we try to serve first. So here's all of our resources. And then here's relevant blog posts that we curated for you guys in particular, starting with two that are very specific to the paid family leave that we just went over. Some other things like how to create a job description, how to terminate an employee, about New York State's overtime salary threshold increases that are coming, about how to comply with labor law poster requirements. And this one you can see here is clarifying the difference between an employee and an independent contractor. Now, you can read our blog, very easily, but these are some that we think are very helpful to small businesses, which is why we curated them and placed them in that way. And then you can learn a little bit more about our services, subscribe to our newsletter, which is emailed out every other Thursday at 2 p.m. So in fact, this Thursday, there's a new one coming out. And then you can get in touch with Tracy, and you as members or advisors within the Small Business Development Center community can do this. Or again, you can make this available to one of your advisees, and they can ask us a question, and we're here to help. We're here to answer. So this is kind of one way that, again, like we tried to consolidate all of the resources and put them in one place, easier to access, easier to digest, and then combine that with a level of support that maybe a business owner who's good at a certain thing, but just does all of the other administrative duties as out of necessity and doesn't really have time to become an expert, but just wants help and just wants it done and wants it crossed off the list and feel good. Well, you can give them this, because they can either read that and find that all out on their own, if they're the investigative type, or if they're the task oriented, they can just fill out the form and say, hey, I'm trying to do this. Can you please give me an answer? And we're here for that too. We understand that you guys can't recommend us, and we totally respect and appreciate that, and would never hope that you would. But what we would encourage is that you pass this along to your advisees, because this is a very non-committal, no obligation way of us reaching out to people and making ourselves available and helping. Our strategy is if we create enough free resources, and our whole strategy, our whole business, our whole marketing strategy is based on putting out helpful content, helping people without asking for anything in return or expecting anything in return. We believe that if we do this well enough, long enough to enough people, then eventually those right people will raise their hand or tap us on the shoulder or fill out a form and say, hey, this is great. Can you help me there? Help me here. So realize that there are no obligations. There are no catches or anything to the knowledge portal or anything else that we put out. Anybody can access it for as long as they like without any obligation. It's really just there to help. And anybody who's been subscribed to our newsletter or been following our blog or seeing our updates on social media would know that to be true about us. So I would encourage you to get the most out of this, and to help your advisees get the most out of this. And a cool thing too is, another reason why you could fill out the form is if you have a question about this in particular. If you can think of a way that this knowledge portal could be improved or further customized for you, your advisors, we'd be happy to do that as well. So again, this is something that we like to do. A lot of people find it helpful, and we're sure that you will too. So thank you for allowing me to explain that for you. Tracy will make sure that everybody has this link sent out, although if you're at your computer right now, you can just simply go to completepayroll.com/NYS-SBDC to access it.
Thank you, CJ. And we'll update with relevant blog posts. I'm sure we're going to send out more things about paid family leave in particular as more information rolls out as well. Yes, that is me. This is a little personalized video too. You can watch it when you go to the link. But I think now, if you have any questions about the paid family leave, oh, this is the helpline number. I guess I'm using cursor. That's the helpline number there. So if you want to jot it down, we'll also make this available, because you see our legal disclaimer there. Yes, we are a payroll company. This is all the research we've done. But if there's something that we didn't answer or you want to go straight to the source, highly recommend calling that helpline. They've been really great. So I'm not sure if there's any questions, but now can certainly be the time to take some.
Great, thank you. We do have a question actually about your company. What areas of the state do you cover?
We actually work across the whole state and the country, actually. We have clients in 44 states and 2 U.S. territories.
Very good, thank you. Does anybody else have any questions about the presentation? Any comments? Well, you guys were very thorough because we're not having any other questions come in today. So, well, if anyone thinks of any after the fact, you can contact Tracy and her company directly, or if you need her information, you can also contact me. Do you have another question? Do you have, or can you get the citation of the law?
New York State has a very good website themselves. I wonder if we can link it up to.
Yeah, we have it. So what they have is the actual law written verbatim, and then on the same page they have a link that shows you the summary of text. I don't know the URL off the top of my head, but we can certainly access it and share it with you.
That would be great. You can email it to me and I'll forward it on.
Perfect.
Any other questions? All right, I guess not. Well, if you do, like I said, think of any, you can contact. Oh, we do have another question. Will you share the forms when they come available?
The forms as in like the letter we were talking about, or rather like the form to request for paid family leave? Or both?
Michelle, can you clarify?
I guess
yeah, both, she said.
Both, yeah, sure. Yeah, we can definitely do that, and we can upload them straight to the knowledge portal as well.
Oh, that's great. All right, any other questions? All right, I'm not seeing any others come in. So we will.
Like I said, this will all be available. We'll give them to Kathy, and you can make them available to everyone. But the knowledge portal that we created is live, so you guys can go right on there if you would like to.
And I just located the link to the actual text verbatim and some summary of text. It is on the Workers' Compensation Board website, so we'll make sure that we send that to Kathy for you to pass along.
Very good. Well, thank you everybody for joining us today, and thank you guys for presenting to us. Really appreciate it.